Hello, everybody. This is Minerva Santiago with Legally Remote. We're so happy to be here with you today. I am an estate planning attorney, an elder law attorney, and mainly service the areas of High Springs and Alachua and also Gainesville. And today I have with me my dear friend, Star Bradbury, and I will let Star tell you a little bit about herself.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Very excited to be here. We were just talking about why we're doing this, and that's basically to help give you information to make educated and informed decisions. And we were just saying, how long have I lived here? A long time. I moved here in the early 80s, brought my family here and lived here and worked here, and found myself in the senior living business, 24 years or more. And we share a passion.
We do? Yes, we do.
We share a passion, and that's helping families, individuals, families, adult children, seniors. That's a kind of encompassing group there. Navigate some of the challenges of having a plan.
That's right.
Making a good plan.
So Star and I met at a senior events, and as we were getting to know each other, turns out that we both had same, I guess, concerns in mind with the population that we work with, and granted from different, I guess, backgrounds.
Right.
She's in the healthcare, more healthcare, and I'm in the legal profession. But nonetheless, it seemed like we both wanted the same things for the clients we worked with. And Star, do you want to tell them a little bit? She has a great resource that she has offered, or she has written, and we use as a resource for our clients and anybody else that reaches out to us. We recommend it. But in any case, yeah.
Thank you. Well, just to share a little bit about my background, I actually ran an assisted living facility. In fact, it was probably the first assisted living facility in Gainesville. It was called Sterling House. Some of you that have been here a long time might remember that. Believe me, it has changed names a million times since then. So it doesn't exist, but the building itself exists. I opened that building before it was built. It was true startup. And then I ran a memory care facility, which I've just learned so much in each of these positions. And then I went to work for Oak Hammock at the University of Florida, which is, again, a very different model.
Yeah. A
life care community for over 18 years. And when I left that position about 6 years ago, I started a consulting business, senior living strategies, and that's why I was so attracted to this topic, because if you said, well, what do you do now? I would say, I really try to help people develop a plan to age successfully, which is very, very similar to what is quality aging and how do you manifest that in your life. And I'm really looking forward to sharing your vision of quality aging and my vision and your vision out there as you listen.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot to cover. And I was motivated by all of that experience to write this book.
Okay.
You can hold it up. Successfully Navigating Your Parents' Senior Years. And so many people ask me, did you write it? Why didn't you write it for seniors? People get upset with me, and I go, oh, it's okay, really. You can read this book as a senior and share it with your children.
I agree. I was thinking that with regards to the title, it's really for anybody planning for somebody's senior years. It doesn't have to be specifically for children.
I agree.
Yeah.
And what's funny is I have many seniors come to different presentations I've done, and they walk away with like 4 books. These are for my 3 kids. And what I always say is, that is great, but follow through.
Yeah.
In terms of successfully aging or quality aging, you're going to hear us talk about the importance of developing a plan. And so I say, have a Zoom meeting with all of those kids. Tell them to let you know when they finish the book. And maybe even if they haven't, schedule that meeting to sit down and talk with them about what your vision is if you're the senior for aging successfully, and how does that mesh,
right,
or not, with your support team. It might not be your adult kids. It could be a loved one within the family or something different. As
exactly.
We know. Mm-hmm.
So when we met, we were sharing our stories or our experiences where, we had a similar circumstance where you wrote this book really because you saw so many families in a crisis situation trying to plan from the healthcare side. And similarly, I work with a lot of clients that are in a crisis situation, planning for long-term care, and I deal with it from the legal side. So when I saw this book, I thought it was an invaluable resource to give to families. The important thing is that they actually apply what they read.
I know.
That is key.
I know.
So have you found that individuals that read your book, has anybody followed up with you?
What? Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Yesterday, I was with a client, 95 years old, still living independently. And by the way, did you all know that the fastest growing demographic in the United States today is 90 to 100? And I am seeing that, and I bet you are too. So she had my book in front of her, and she had Post-it notes. She must have had 10, 15 Post-it notes. And she said, "Now I have another question." So she'd read the whole book, marked through it, had Post-it notes with questions. And I wrote the book to be immediately applicable to whatever your situation is. It's not an academic book. It's an easy to read, easy to understand.
It is. Very relatable.
That you can relate to, and you could even skip over and say, I'm going directly to that chapter on what is a life care community, or what is the difference between home care and home health care, or how do I decide if I should age in place? Big question. Or move. And so it's very practical.
Yeah, it is. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. As I shared with you, it took a long time to write.
I know, but I think it's wonderful.
Thank you.
So the purpose of our session today is really, what is quality aging? And granted, that's not going to be the same definition for all of us, but we're just going to have a conversation about what, in our opinion, that looks like.
And I would like to encourage everybody, if you can, to have a pen and paper. And while we're talking about this, I'll call it your homework assignment. Not too bad a homework assignment, but to sit down and write, as we're talking, anything that resonates with you, or anything that comes up that we haven't shared. And we're hoping you kind of let us know that through your Facebook responses, anything that you think we might have left out. Because it's really a very practical way to approach developing a plan, is shaping for yourself what quality aging means for you, and if you have a partner, life partner. And by the way, I've spent many tense discussions with couples who are not on the same page. I bet you have too.
Yes.
Where you're not on the same page at all. So I would advise, if you're listening with a partner, that you keep separate notes for now, and share them afterwards. But why don't you jump in and say a little bit about what you think quality aging is from your perspective?
From my perspective, it's allowing somebody to age, or somebody to age and have as much independence as possible for as long as they can, and have the ability for that individual to make choices about what they would like at future stages of their life, before they can't. Exactly.
In fact, that was the first. That's funny, because we have not talked about this, other than we were going to address this topic from our perspectives. And so the first thing on my mental checklist was, in terms of quality aging, is being able to live a healthy, independent lifestyle for as long as they possibly can, and being able to shape those decisions for themselves before they can't. Because we see what happens when you assume everything is just going to fall into place without a deliberate plan.
Right.
Mhm.
So what we typically, at least
Mhm.
what I typically see now in my practice, is where the families are coming to us when there was no plan done, and now the individual who's needing the long-term care may not be able to make these decisions anymore. So
Mhm.
now everybody else is making the
Mhm.
decisions for them, and a lot of times they're rushed. A lot of the
Mhm.
times they're dependent on financial circumstances. They're not thought out well, and certainly there's really no quality in that whole circumstance. You know, it's
Right.
just kind of just getting care.
Well, and then you've lost so many
part of it.
options.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, if I said, you know, what's the one thing I've seen over and over again that prevents people from quality aging is, and it's so simple, and we're all guilty of it, so no judgment here. But you know, after being in senior living for 25 years and you practicing elder law, we see the consequences of procrastination. That's what I was going to say. Procrastinating or assuming you're never going to need long-term care, and it's hard. It's hard to even think about it. But I think that if we can help people accept that they could be what I like to call an optimistic realist or a realistic optimist, right? That you could approach this successful aging or quality aging from the perspective of, oh, well, what if will I be prepared for the what ifs, the curveballs?
Yeah.
I want to go back to quality aging because besides just the, you know, trying to maintain an independent lifestyle, which is a core principle in my book, I would also say add a few other things. Joy, you know, some joy in your life. I also hear what people share with me. I want to stay connected to either my family, my children, or my community, because not everybody listening either has children or they're estranged from their children, but a sense of connectedness is really important, I think, to quality aging, staying connected to whoever your community is. Community, however known, shall we say.
And that's part of them making those decisions before they can.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking of, you know, quality aging also means, I think, having a purpose, having, as the older that you get, because I have a term that I use that sort of is, let's call it a shortcut to cover an arc of time. Because when you think about it, I mean, I always ask people, Minerva, have you planned for retirement? And sometimes people, well, of course, yes,
right.
You know, I have.
Retirement is coming.
But then the question I ask is, great, but have you planned for post-retirement? The 20, 25, maybe 30 years, that's a long time. If people are living to 90 to 100, that arc of time could be that long. From, let's say, if you retired even at 65 and you're living to 100. So I call it that the shortcut is, these could be the go-go years, the slow-go years, and the no-go years.
Yeah. What do you find, or have you found, the biggest obstacle to creating a plan for what we call quality aging is? And we'll go into
the river of denial.
Okay.
Runs deep. Meaning, it is difficult for adult children or for seniors to look at the possibility of the slow go or no go years. And that's what we're trying to talk to people about. Is plan for that. What if you did need long-term care? How are you going to pay for that?
Right. I have found similarly, but I have found that a lot of people are aware of the need, and it's more of a procrastination thing. Like, yes, we will get to it. We will get to it. And I think it's similar, at least in my line of work, it's with I really just focus on planning. So it's really with even estate planning, special needs planning, Medicaid planning, whatever kind of planning I'm doing,
Right.
most people do the planning because they have either somebody they know, or there's either a crisis, or somebody they know has been in a crisis and had a bad experience. Because statistics are that in Americans, like 33% of them have an estate plan. That's just an estate plan.
Yeah, that's not very high.
No.
Right? Yeah.
It's not very high. It's very low.
Right.
And then, so even to talk about having a plan for long term, we're not even taking care of the basics to begin with.
That's so true. The first question when I sit down with people, I sort of have like, let's cross off the big items on the list.
Mm-hmm.
And the big items are, okay, so you have a will or a trust, and I think you're probably going to have something important to say about that, but you have a will or a trust. Not being an attorney, I can't evaluate whether somebody should have a will or a trust, or how to, all those issues. Do you have a living will and a healthcare surrogate? And I'm shocked. And I talk to people who are, this has nothing to do with education, how wealthy or not you are. I've talked to people with PhDs. Do you have a will? And when they start to fidget and hesitate, I'm like, what? You don't? You have this lovely home, and you don't have any? Well, I just know
I know.
So those are like the big ticket items,
Yeah.
And like you said, let's make sure you have those, and then let's look a little beyond that.
Yeah.
To develop a plan. It isn't just those items.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we do our planning with our clients and our families, we usually, we'll take care of the basic things first, and then try to address long term. What is the plan for long term? And a lot of times there is no plan. A lot of times we encourage them and they follow through, which is good. But then of course we always have a lot of the crisis situations, which is what we're trying to avoid.
Which is what we're trying to avoid.
Yes.
Is, I have an expression that goes like this. It is not if your parents will need help. It is when. If they live long enough, it is very likely that you will be thrown into a crisis. And if you know that, the statistics are, did you say this already? 70%, I think we said it earlier, we were chatting, 70% of all seniors over the age of 65 will need some kind of long-term care. Now that could be home care, it could be assisted living, it could be skilled care, but all of those things are long-term care, and all of them have a high price tag. And so people should realize that's, if you're 65, 70%, that's pretty high chance.
It is.
So, why not at least flesh out a plan and have a discussion with an elder law attorney, with an aging life care specialist, with your financial planner, with your children, about what is your plan. If you want quality aging, it doesn't just happen. You have to think about it, write a plan, and then develop a plan and implement a plan.
I just thought about something listening to you speak with regards to quality aging. I think not only the individual who needs the care should have the quality in their life, also those their kids, caregivers, their kids should also be involved in also having quality of life during that time.
No, I agree, and it's such a sticking point. And in my book, I really say to adult children, and I mean that so deeply, do not agree to a care plan that will destroy your life if it's at all possible. And we're trying to say that if you have a conversation early, I'm going to talk about what I mean by early, then you're far more likely to have a quality of a life for yourself and your parents if you have a plan, rather than getting the call from the discharge planner, which you've probably, somebody out there's had this happen. What? But your mom can't go. My mom can't go
She's
home.
going where?
Exactly, and that's
Yeah.
when they're calling you.
Right.
What am I going to do? And I just found out
Yeah,
that my
Mom just
mother
got out of
can't
the
go home,
hospital.
and
Yeah.
and or they think they have weeks to make a decision.
Yeah.
No,
Mm-mm.
no. Very often, that discharge planner in the hospital has determined that you have met or exceeded a reason to stay in the hospital, and they're going to say, "We're discharging Mom, Dad, your loved one tomorrow. Here are the places you can look at." Now, we could have a long conversation about, and maybe we will at another time,
Maybe.
who makes those decisions.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and going a little bit more into the quality of the adult children's lives, I'm thinking of many times when we were just talking about it previously, where we talk to our clients and ask them what their plan is for long-term care, and typically their answer is that my adult kids will take care of me.
you see us laughing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
And first of all, we always applaud them and compliment them, and we think it's wonderful that that they have adult kids that are willing to do this. But we ask them, have you had this conversation with them? And the answer is usually no. And
that's why we're laughing.
That's why we're laughing, yes. But just taking into consideration when a parent says that, granted, their adult child should and most likely will be involved in their care. However, if you just rely on the adult child for your long-term care, really think about what that entails for this adult child. Like,
Exactly.
you don't know for how long you'll need long-term care. And how is that going to impact the adult child's life? Will they have to stop working? Will they work less?
Yes.
How would it impact their quality of life with their own family, their spouses, their children, emotional, spiritually, everything? There's so much that goes into that, where it really deserves a family conversation.
It does deserve a family conversation. And when people say, "Well, Star, what age do you recommend starting these conversations?" Yes. And I say, when your parents are in their early 60s or earlier, if you're talking about paying for long-term care, since some of those long-term care insurance vehicles have to be taken out sooner, not later. Yeah. But you would think that the older someone was, that they would be more willing to have these conversations. But in my experience, that is not true. It's sort of the inverse ratio, meaning that the closer one is to possibly needing help or care, the more resistance there is. And so, believe me, it is easier to start these conversations for a lot of reasons at a younger age with your parents, in order to, one, establish regular communication with them, bring these topics up long before there's any crisis or stress around the topic, and to try to ask very, very gentle questions to begin with, like, "Mom, Dad, what kind of lifestyle are you thinking about for you when you retire? Are you thinking about staying in your home, or maybe moving? Maybe moving closer to me, if you mean that, or another sibling? Can we talk about that, just so we sort of have a plan?" Very gentle.
That's probably one of my favorite parts of your book. It's just because even though we know and we recommend have the conversation with your parents, a lot of it, like the outcome of that conversation, is really gonna depend on how you approach that conversation.
I learned the hard way, Minerva.
I know. I think I did too. You should have written this book before.
I know. That's right. I needed that book. I wrote this book for a younger version of me. I made so many mistakes. And I like to say, kind of sadly, that I learned just as much about what didn't work and what not to do for my own personal experiences. Why? Because my parents divorced. I had two sets of parents. One lived 7-8 hours away from me, and the other couple, my dad and stepmom, lived in New York City. And I can tell you so many things that went wrong, poor advice I gave, starting these conversations in absolutely the wrong way, and blowing up. So I know how tough it can be, and that is why I have a whole outline about how to begin these conversations.
Yeah.
One thing I will tell you is make it about you. Do not make it about them. Don't say, I'm worried about you. Here's what you say. I'm worried about me. Now, why do I say that? Because parents, mostly they love their children. They don't want to worry their children. You say, I'm worried about me. What would I do if something happened to you and I was left trying to make decisions? And I wouldn't even know what to do. We haven't even talked about that.
Yes.
What if something happened to you, Dad, first? Or to Mom? Or you know, could we at least begin having a conversation about what you want? Everybody's ready to sign into a conversation where you're part of the team. Remember, you're not trying to tell your parents what to do. You're on their team. You're there to support them. But if you have a plan that you're all agreeing to, far more likely for it to succeed.
Yes, and I think it is brilliant where you know, have the child focus on themselves, because it's true. A parent is more likely to be concerned about the child than if you make it about the parent, then it's like you're questioning my ability to make decisions or my independence later. Yeah, I think that's brilliant.
That's right. And gosh, you know, there's 53 million caregivers in the United States today, and that statistic is from a study done by AARP and the National Alliance of Caregivers, and I was so startled by that. It went up 19.5 million, if I'm remembering my facts correctly, within the last few years. Well, that makes sense. You know, the baby boomers are aging, and so that population is growing, and that means that caregivers are growing. And that's 1 in 5 people are caregivers. And I will say that big statistic includes anybody in a caregiving role. So it could be for disabled children as well. Right. But when you pare down the statistics, it's still huge. And one other thing is that 11% of 53 million, which was like 5 million plus, of caregivers live more than 2 hours away. Wow. So it is a challenging world.
It is. So we thank you for joining us today. The purpose today was to just get the conversation going, to talk a little bit about quality aging. We've given our opinions on what we feel that quality aging is. If you're watching us on Facebook, and you can post and you have any comments of maybe things that you feel like we should be including in the definition of quality aging that we're not, that we haven't thought about, we'd love to hear from you. And also, if you have any questions for either Star or myself related to our conversation today, feel free to post them and we will respond to them, post them on Facebook.
We will answer them. And if you're wondering where to find my book, it's available on any book site at all. And so Amazon or anything else.
Give them the topic or the
well,
title again?
Here, we'll hold it up.
Yep.
Successfully Navigating Your Parents' Senior Years. And the subtitle is Critical Information to Maximize Their Independence and Make Sure They Get the Care They Need. I'm excited about next week's series.
Yes. So next week, if you join us, we'll be here a week from today, same time. And next week, we'll be talking about how to plan for quality aging, what that looks like, some strategies, and also have some success stories and other stories to share with you.
And some disaster to avoid.
Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes you learn just as much about what not to do, but we're going to be guiding you about what to do to achieve that quality aging.
Yeah. So
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. We'll see you next week.